Welcome to Millan Foundation Conversations, where we talk all things community, philanthropy, and connect people together. We hope you enjoy our show.
Welcome to Millan Conversations. I'm Rylan Kean. I work in the real estate side of Millan Enterprises. Got Scot Coulter joining me as a project manager on our construction team, but the real reason you're here is, man, you got some cool stuff going on. And
we do.
Want to hear a little bit about it. So
I'm ready to talk. Let's talk.
Why don't you just open us up, man? Tell us a little bit about the way forward and how you're kind of changing some lives and sharing hope.
Yeah. So I'm again Scot Coulter. I am obviously a member of the Millan team and get to be a part of the Millan Foundation and Millan Enterprises. But another reason why we're doing is I would get to be a part of 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶 missions, which is some mission organization stuff that we're doing down in mostly in Guatemala, but a little bit around the world, and just get to be a part of a cool team doing some cool mission work. So
So what? Let's back up a second. Tell me a little bit about Scot. Like I know you a little personally. People are listening. We like to joke around like you are a man of many talents, and a giver in many ways. But tell us, who is Scot? Where do you come from?
Yeah, I was born right here in Clarksville, Tennessee. I love this community, and I just I'm a person that wants to give back, person that wants to do cool in this community, and that's exactly what I get to do as part of my job here at Millan Enterprises. We're doing a lot of cool things here in Clarksville, and then it's obviously transformed into things we're doing around the world. And I just part of who I am, I want to be the person that wants to give back and wants to do the cool things, both here in Clarksville and here and around the world. So that's just part of who I am, not necessarily about exactly what I'm doing, but exactly who we are as an organization is what we strive to be at Millan, and we strive to do cool things and change lives. So that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, this conversation, is not just about 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶 missions. It has to do with the heart of, what the Millan Foundation is. And what I'd say is you're a very humble leader, and I'd like to brag on you for a minute. The people listening, they probably heard that and they're like, okay, who's Scot? Scot is a guy who is a believer in God. He is there when the church opens, leads worship. Some Sundays, I heard some stories about that, where you randomly, shouted out, I can't believe the piano's leading worship one day. And that's how we discovered you've led some worship teams. You're there when the door closes. Your grandfather was a preacher, is that right?
He fills in for preaching. So he's very active in the church. My whole family is. So it's been a blessing to be a part of that and be grown up in that atmosphere.
Yeah. So those values, I think, have carried forward. When you joined Millan Enterprises, I remember, was that 4 years ago? About 4 years ago?
Yeah, a little over 4 years ago.
Yeah, you were still at Austin Peay State University.
Yes, sir.
So, pretty impressive. Come work basically full time, as much as you could, and going to school full time. And you graduated 2 years ago, is that right?
In 2022, December 2022.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So just highly successful in the fact that you can do that. You're, I think one of the most impressive things when I first met you was the work ethic. I think that, the humbleness, the work ethic, and then come to find out you're a genius as well.
Far from it.
I know you won't tell people that, but you definitely have a brain that works in a different way, and it's pretty amazing. I'm glad to call you a friend. So
thank you,
and I'm glad we get to have this conversation and share a little bit about what you have going on. But I think it's important to tell people that. And last but not least, you now have a beautiful wife.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So about 1 month. Month
and a few days. Yeah.
Month and a few days. So congratulations, Scot. Super proud of you, and I think what you're doing with 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶, which we're going to learn some more about, and you as an individual are going to do some pretty amazing things. So thank you for being a part of this. So tell me, how did 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶 get started? Where did that come from?
Yeah, so Bitten and I, who's my pastor at our church, and we've been doing missions to the church for many years. I went on my first mission when I was 14 years old, and he took me to Guatemala on my first one, actually against my own will. I did not want to go. He bought me a plane ticket anyway and kind of forced me to go. And immediately once I got there, the whole experience changed my life. It kind of, I think, changed the trajectory of what I was going to do with my life, and kind of just impacted me in ways that I had no idea could could happen. And so, spent a couple years doing missions with the church, and then on a trip that me and Benton and I went on in 2022, we kind of went down to scout out some different projects for our church, and we got to have a meeting with a group of principals down there in one of the communities we were traveling with, and it was me and him and one of our friends, 𝗨𝗿𝗶𝗶𝗶, that lives in Guatemala, and I think it was principals from 10 different schools and the director of their school district there, and we met with them, and each of them just presented us with projects that they needed at their school that have really just needed help since COVID, with kids coming back from COVID, and they were just, all these schools were just in dire need of different projects. And so they presented us, we sat around a table and they presented us with different projects. And then after the meeting, we went and visited each of these schools, and really we just realized that this was bigger than what our church could handle. We try to go down at least once every other year as a church, and we realized that it was just more than what a church could handle. And so we were like, we got to figure out a way to get more organizations involved, more, either churches or businesses or whatever we could to get involved. So we started throwing around the idea of starting a nonprofit that would focus on mission work. Slowly but surely, 𝗨𝗍𝗶 started evolving, and then, kind of a year down the road, we were able to become officially formed. We got our, we formed a nonprofit through Larry Rocconi's office, helped us get started, and we got the legal paperwork and everything done, and now, in 2023 we were able to form officially. So and then we've taken several groups since then, including several trips from Millan Enterprises, and so yeah, it was kind of just a snowball effect of what we're already doing at our church, trying to get more people involved, and that's kind of the main catalyst that started 𝗨𝗍𝗶𝗶.
Yeah, and just kind of emphasize, 𝗨𝗍𝗶 means
the way. So 𝗨𝗍𝗶𝗶. Where we go in Guatemala, there's a city near it called Antigua, which is like a super old city, and all the streets are one-way cobblestone streets. And we were there, and like after me and Benton, when we were there in 2022, we're sitting around like just talking and praying about what it is that God had put on our hearts during that trip. And we were walking down the street, and there's on all the roads, there's a sign on the roads that say una vía, which means one way. Mm-hmm. And we're like, that's cool, vía, the way, God's our way. And they were like, what about if it was the way, la vía? And so we were like, we found that name, and we stuck with it, and it's kind of already, we've seen it kind of transform kind of the meaning behind it a little bit. We focus on these projects of giving, not necessarily giving handouts, but giving the people a way to be better, or a way to improve their school, or a way to do whatever it is the mission is. And so it's not about us, it's not about them, it's about their future, or it's about God. And at the end of the day, it's about how they can improve their lives. And so we try to give, in all of our projects, we try to give everyone a way forward, is what we say.
Yeah, I think that's really important when we look at, not only missions, but just changing people's lives, right? Like, mm-hmm. what does it look like? And it's been a while since I've done a mission trip. I've not done one with Millan Enterprises yet, and I get to do my first one with you at the end of July. So if I don't know when this comes out, but if it's out beforehand, be praying for us. I think it'll be a great time. But one of the things I distinctly remember on the few that I've been to, and there's some books that talk about it, but it's this concept of, God's already there. We're not bringing God there, yeah. Right? And the second part of that is we're not saving anybody. And the impact that we make is to help people, get to a better place themselves in many ways, right? You're providing the help that they may have not got, the assistance they needed that allows them to create long-lasting change. It can be immediate impact, right? Don't get me wrong. Like, there's immediate, needs and things, but how do you see 𝗨𝗍𝗶𝗶 in that? Like, where it is kind of a long-lasting change. It's not, hey, Scott showed up with a group and they did some cool stuff and they left, right? What's the impact?
I mean, and really what we try to focus on is empowering them to do the things that they need, like to do, to be in charge of their school or to be in charge of a water project or to be in charge of whatever it is that we're doing. It's about empowering them, not coming and giving them a handout. It's about giving them a hand up. It's not about, us going down and saying, oh, cool, we built this school, now we're leaving and they're going to try to figure it out. It's about giving them the tools and resources for them as a community or them as a, church or them as a school to do the projects that they want to do and that they already, know how to do. And just us providing some resources, just like the Millan Foundation, our goal is to help organizations overcome obstacles. It's the exact same thing we're trying to do is in those communities, help them overcome the obstacles that might be poverty or that might be famine or that might be whatever the case may be. It's about us trying to go there and connect them with groups from the states or from wherever so that they can, overcome the obstacles that they're facing. Not about us going and doing whatever. It's about partnering with them to overcome those obstacles.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about those obstacles. What do you see? What are the major things that are hindering? Let's talk Guatemala, right? Like that seems to be the main focus of 𝗨𝗻𝗶𝗶, at least at the moment.
Yeah. So when we talk about the main projects we're doing right now, is mostly with schools. And we talk about schools, the main obstacles they face is just lack of funding for most. To be quite frank. When we think about school systems, we're accustomed, like especially here in Montgomery County, we have a great school system that does whatever they can to better their schools, and whatever the schools need, they're there helping them out. But in these communities, they really don't have that. They don't have a school system that's backing them, especially financially, to do betterment projects at their school. And so a lot of these schools, especially after COVID, they were just left and kind of either with low space or with deteriorated materials in their school. We see schools with huge holes in the ceilings, kids getting rained on while they're doing their work. As far as dogs just running around the middle of school and coming in inside classrooms. And so there's a lot of different issues that they have at their schools that they would love to fix, but it's just a lack of funds where it may take a community forever to come up with the funds to do a project, which if we can help facilitate those funds or help them fundraise in some way, then we jump in and try to help out. And that's kind of what the main thing we do is help them. Our whole team that does the construction is from Guatemala. We don't we like to say that we're not trying to bring in a bunch of American builders to come in and build a Guatemalan school, because we don't build the same here. We don't build the same as they do there. So all of our team there is our Guatemalans that do construction every day. They're a construction team and they build. We just help them facilitate the resources as far as getting this project done. So we don't like to say that we're going down to do the work. We're going down to help them overcome the obstacle so that they can do the work.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's obviously a lot of great organizations doing a lot of good stuff, and I think it's always special when you find people that have that heart to serve. It's not just about money, right? It's about giving our time sometimes and reaching down into people's lives and meeting them where they're at. And there's a sacrifice that comes with that. And I want to talk about that for a second, because I think that's important for people to hear. The people that are involved in these projects, you talk about Benton, that was your pastor, right? The people that are there, I'm sure you have leaders down there that you work with, right? Community leaders, pastors, things like that. What is that sacrifice like for the people that are involved at an in-depth level?
I mean, it's just like getting to take a vacation, but you don't get to take your kids, like your kids or your spouse. So you're everyone that's going down with this is spending time away from their families, away from their work, away from life in general. And so it really is a time sacrifice to go down there and be part of it. But I think it's almost like an investment to me. It's an investment in these people's lives, but it's also an investment in us, because I will say nothing feels better than when you're down there and you can see the change that you're making. It's real, it's tangible, you can feel it. And so, yes, it is it's time away from your family, time away from your spouse or whatever, but it is huge that the impact that it makes on yourself. And it feels like it almost feels wrong because you're there to do good, but it ends up doing so much good for you. And that, it makes you miss it every time you come back. You're like, I can't wait to go back on the next one.
Yeah. the impact on our lives that, I can say firsthand, in a different, set of environments, I've felt that. And I think anyone who's done these type trips, whether it be a medical trip, a mission trip, or humanitarian, the need is great. And getting to be a part of something that is bigger than you, man, it feeds the soul. It changes your perspective. You come back. I remember when I first got back from a trip, I think I was maybe 23, 24 years old. And the impact it had, it was just like, why are these people mad about, the food they got at the restaurant, right? It was cold. It's like, man, you're lucky to eat. And it's important. It's important to recognize some of that, because I think we have a duty, since we've been on these trips, organizations like yourself, is how do you connect the dots, right? How do you get people that just haven't seen the other side of the world, haven't seen that, and how do we teach people, that perspective without them getting to share that? And that's a challenge. I'm sure you felt that too, right? How do you get people to give money or to go, and they just don't get it? What does that look like? What kind of challenges do you face with that?
Well, Leo has done a great job of, selling it for us. It's not about, you can show people a slideshow of all the lives you've changed, or you can show how many people you fed or whatever, but until you experience it, it's really just hard you just can't describe it. And so, Leo says all the time, if I know if this person could just feel it, they would be hooked on it. And just like we got to take George Watson down with us, me and Leo got to take him down and on a trip, and then now he came back, and I think it changed his life of how he views those things. And there's really no way to really experience it till you're there, and you can touch it and feel it and be a part of it. And so, like, that's my challenge to most people is, like, before I went, I was, like I said, I was 14, and I was like, I didn't lose anything in Guatemala. There's no reason for me to go there. It's dangerous, whatever. But immediately, 2 days into the trip, I knew I was supposed to be there, and I knew that it was having a huge impact on my life. And so I challenge anyone that wants to go or that maybe doesn't even, if they think they don't want to go, maybe it's a reason you should go. It's beneficial for anyone of any age, of any person across the board. It's really just a eye-opening experience, and it makes you grateful for everything you have and everything that happens in your life. So
yeah, I could not agree more. We do, I tell people all the time, and from a non-religious standpoint, right? In the leadership world, people need to give back. It's a calling that everyone should take up. And our passions are different, and different, things that we've gone through make us passionate about different nonprofits and different groups we support. But too many people sit on the sidelines, and they like to comment, right? They like to have a point of view. But I'm always one to encourage people, find a place to give back. And sometimes that's right down the road. Sometimes that's in the Appalachians, which is a very poor region in America. Sometimes that's in another country like Guatemala or Cuba or Mexico. These are all places that I know you've been, or I don't know if you've done Cuba yet, but
Cuba.
Yeah. So, the need is great, and it's everywhere. And to, we shelter ourselves, we shelter our kids a lot, not to get on a personal level. I look at my family, it's a young family. And I've made a personal commitment that, I want my kids to experience this as early as they can, because I want them to understand what the most of the world goes through. I think it shapes our lives in ways that, almost like on a DNA level, you're never the same. Yes, I haven't been in years, but it changes you. And I think if you don't get to experience that, you're almost missing out on life.
No, yeah, I went for the first time at 14, and literally, changed the perspective of my life. It was the reason I wanted to learn Spanish. It was the reason why I, wanted to come work for Leo. It was the reason behind a lot of different things. And without that, one bitten by me a plane ticket literally changed the trajectory of my life. And so, it is so important for especially the young people. It's so important for parents to, I think we see a lot of kids, these days with everything, but act like they have nothing. And so just the perspective that these trips bring is enormous. And like you said, it's so important for us to show that to other people, show it to our families and friends and children. And so I think it's, you know, one of the most important things we can do for our families.
Yeah, could not agree more. You know, I want to, you know, ask you to maybe share a personal story.
Yeah.
And I'll start it off with, you know, the experience I had and something that I think just sat with me and has always sat with me. It's something I remembered very distinctly that really changed everything for me when I went on my trip. And I remember it's maybe the second day we were at a sports camp. We were doing a sports camp down in Panama, and in a very small village. It wasn't really remote. It was still, you know, kind of close to a city, but surrounded by a lot of poverty and gangs. And so the little village we're in were all these kids that kind of lived in that area, and they were away from their families for a week. And I think it was dinner time, and I remember I don't know who said it, but it was someone at the table, and they just made a comment about, man, we're just eating rice again and beans, right? And we all kind of joked, and you know, I'm laughing too, and I'm like, oh man, this is kind of, you know, in my head, kind of, yeah, I wish I could have McDonald's or something, right? Like something different. This is like our fourth meal, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's all basically the same. And I remember the leader of that group, you know, in a very compassionate way, you know, sat down and said, hey guys, like, I hear you, but some of these kids, this is the first meal that they've had in a week, or a consistent meal, right? And I think that sets it home when you're like, man, I'm over here complaining about eating, and you look around the room and there's, you know, 75 children who may have not got a meal that day or a meal last week. And I think that changed everything for me completely. And I got to spend the rest of the week, you know, doing what I love, playing soccer with a bunch of kids. You know, they kicked my butt more times than not, but man, what a blast, but life-changing in that. And so I opened that up, you know, I'd love to hear something, you know, out of your long list of experiences that may have stuck in your head.
Yeah, probably that, like you said, the first trip you're on is like this, you're taking so much, and that's why every time we go on a new trip and there's a couple people there that's never been on a mission trip, I love, you know, as soon as we get in, I'm like staring at them while they're looking out the window of the bus. They're like, because they're all just like making faces, and they're like, and you can see them taking it all in for the first time. So I love when we take new people on trips and they get to experience for the first time. But just like that on the first trip I went on, I remember like the third day we were there and playing soccer with the kids, and I'm looking around, and obviously didn't speak Spanish at that time, and I go over to one of the translators and I'm like, hey, you know, there's no kid, I don't see any kids my age. Like there's no, you know, there's only probably 10-year-old and 10, 11 and younger. It's like, where's, you know, why aren't the rest of them at school? And the rest of them, was like, he was pretty much just telling me like, school for them isn't free. School for them, like for those kids that are to that age, it's either really expensive or they don't have enough income as a family that they can afford to, one, for him to go to school, and secondly, for them not to work. And so I was like, and that just hit me hard, because I was like, at my age, not being able to go to school, and I got to go to work to support my family, just to see the drastic difference in what the lives we live here and the lives that they're living there, you know, as far as opportunity that those kids have, you know, we don't, you know, you'll understand how lucky you are until you're like in that instance and you feel the change, you feel the difference as far as like what those people in those circumstances are going through versus what you live every day. And I joke with my wife Elena all the time, and every time she complains about whatever, or I complain about, you know, hey, you know, the TV's not working, or, you know, the air conditioner's off, or it's hot in here, I'm like, that's a first world problem. Yeah. But we don't realize how many first world problems really are until you see what a third world country like Guatemala, like Mexico, like Cuba, or any of those are. You don't see how drastic the difference is. And like that on my first one, and like you mentioned, when we're in Cuba, it's the same way. It's rice and beans, and we joke all the time. It's like, what are we having for dinner today? Rice and beans, or beans and rice? And that's something Ted always says, is like, today's either rice and beans or beans and rice. And that's, you know, you look back and you're like, man, I was ready, like you said, for some McDonald's or literally anything else. Yeah. But in that instance, you're like, you know, when we were in Cuba this past December, they were going on 2 weeks without rations. So there's the end of their second week, they were, you know, they get literal ration books. And they go to like this big warehouse once a day, and they literally get their daily bread. Like when, we say, give us our daily bread, they're literally going there to get their daily bread, and they're picking up the rations, and they went on 2 weeks without certain rations. The warehouse was just empty. And, we were there, and, they had enough food to give us to eat because we were, buying it at other areas and getting it there. But literally everyone else in that neighborhood where we were staying was just like, they would walk every day to the warehouse, and they'd come back, and we're like, hey, did you get anything today? And they're like, no, there's nothing else. And it's just like super difficult to be there, and you're like, okay, well, I'm getting fed, and I'm complaining about rice and beans, just like you said, but these people are literally walking down the street, hanging their head, like how am I gonna give my kid? They're giving their kid the only piece of bread that they're gonna have for the whole day, and then we're over here just, complaining about having to eat whatever, and it's really hard. Some of these trips some of the times it's difficult emotionally, like especially when we go to the orphanages and we go to some of the areas that are a little bit harder emotionally. But the return you get on that, as far as like the perspective and stuff. So every time we go, I take people to one of the partnering organizations we work with the foundation, or 𝗨�57 is an amazing organization, but it really is a heavy part of our trip to go, and we spend all week hanging out with kids and their families, and then to go to an orphanage and hear the stories about how these kids are sexually assaulted and abused, and then or just given up because the parents can't afford to pay for them. It's really it makes it hard, but then it's really a great end to our trip because we leave with so much perspective after that.
Yeah, there's kind of reminds me, there's so much need sometimes. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of a story, and I'm going to butcher it, and I don't know who said this story, and maybe some people have heard it, but it's a story of an old man, at the beach, and he's walking down the beach, and he sees a young person throwing some starfish back into the ocean. There's a bunch of starfish on the beach, and there's hundreds of them. And the old guy, says, "What are you doing?" And he goes, well, "I'm saving the starfish, throwing them back." And the old man goes, "Well, you can't get all of them. What difference are you going to make?" And the young person goes, "It made a difference to this one." Throws another one in, right? Yeah. And I think that's the same thing, right? Like we can stare at the adversity that's in front of us, the tragedies that are in front of us, and it's easy to say, "Well, I can't do anything," or "That's too much." I think groups like 𝗨𝗶𝗴𝗶, like the Millan Foundation, like the people that support them, the people that are going on these trips, they've chosen to say it makes a difference to that person, right? Yeah. I think that's really, really important. And I think from a human perspective, which is really important, is finding that heart of compassion and looking at people and realizing, you mentioned the foster homes, knowing parents gave up their children because they thought that was the best answer, right? That's hard. Being a parent myself now, I'm like, man, that's gut-wrenching to know that, man, that decision had to be made. And I think having that heart of compassion allows you to come from a place of hopefully not judgment, and a place of like, man, I want to help how I can, right? And realize that all people want in war-torn countries and impoverished countries and places that have horrible governments and all kinds of natural disasters, all those things that come to the place, as humans, as a father or as a mother, all you want's the best for your children, right? And at that human level, there's all these politics and religious and all these other things that go around you, but you want that. Yeah. You want the best. Yeah. And that's cool that you got to spend some time in some of those areas.
Well, you can see especially 𝗨𝗪𝗶𝗴𝗶, they're so faith-based, and all their walls have scriptures on them, and they're praying over the kids. And like you said, as a father, as a mother, they want what's best for those kids, and they know that their Father in heaven wants what's best for those kids, and they show that to them. They love them. They put their arms on them. They pray with them. They grow them in a way that heals them from their trauma, whatever the case may be. And it's unlike anything you've ever experienced. Sometimes it's like, only God could have built something like this. Exactly what we say, only God could have put together 𝗨𝗶𝗴𝗶. Only God could have put together Millan Foundation. For all the organizations you work with, faith being number one, only God could have done it. And that's, like you said, with, throwing back the starfish, one person at a time can make a difference. But together, we work as a collective with all these other organizations that, like Ted Barrett said at our launch. He said, it's not about who gets the credit, and we can accomplish so much when no one cares about who gets the credit, but also when God gets the glory.
Absolutely.
And so, us as 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶, Millan Foundation, as a collective, we're all just working together to throw one starfish back in the ocean, and maybe together we can save them all. And we're not the ones that's saving them; it's God at the end of the day that's going to save them. But God's using us just like He used Moses, just like He used David, just like He used all these different characters from the Bible. He's using us in the same way to make a difference in one person or one group of people's lives at a time, so that He can accomplish His plan. And that's exactly what we're trying to do as people, but also as organizations.
Absolutely. I think, my time at Millan Enterprises, that's one of the biggest attracting things that brought me here was you could see that heart kind of emulate through people, and we've built a culture that cares. I came about 5 years ago, and I think I kind of knew this foundation was going to come about. I really didn't know how or when. And fast forward, about 4 years, so about last year, I think the pieces just started falling in place. And you talk about that glory to God. That was a God thing. I don't think Leo ever dreamed of being able to do what he's doing, and Lily either. But I think they, the Millan family has embraced that, and they've embraced that heart in a way that says, I'm going to give without any expectation of a return.
That's exactly right.
And because they've done that, that investment has just blossomed into so many different projects that have changed. I can't imagine less than thousands of people's lives at this point. So, groups like you who are coming alongside, and that's a big part of what the foundation's doing, is saying groups like 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶, right? They're saying, hey, there's 𝗨𝗽𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶, there's 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶, there's probably 10 or 15 other organizations that we've invested in. Millan is saying, hey, we don't want to reproduce what you're doing. We just want you to be the best at what you do, and clearing obstacles, providing resources, providing funding, connecting the dots. And that's a big reason that we're talking today. That's, I think, a little bit about what the podcast is about, right? Is helping connect the dots, educating people, and getting people involved. I think, my whole goal, would be for people to just do something. Like do anything, right? Because it's easy to judge. It's easy to sit at home and watch TV and not do anything else, but you scroll TikTok and you see a problem, and it's easy to be like, oh, it's not my problem, until it is your problem, right? And we saw that in our back door with the tornadoes. We've seen it before, and during COVID, it's a great example. There's a lot of need during COVID. How many families locally didn't have food because the fuel program wasn't going on at school. And in this time, we are very blessed. Many of us are very blessed in our situations. And, so I'm excited for what you're doing. We're going to kind of bring it home. I kind of want to ask, how can we support you? How can other organizations support you? Maybe individuals. What does 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶 need?
It's. I like to say it's not necessarily about what we're doing. Me and Ben always say it's not. A lot of organizations you work with. Not necessarily the ones we work with, but some organizations are like, give me your money and I'll go do good with it. What we want to do, especially with 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶 and at the Millan Foundation, what we want to be is a group that brings the good to people and lets them do it. And that's exactly true with what we're doing in Guatemala. We want to make it available that anyone could come and do a trip. And so that's kind of what we've done at Millan. We were able to bring a trip that the Millan employees were able to do it and go down and be a part of. And I think it changed kind of the organization as a whole. It's like kind of how people think about missions and how people got involved with what, before it was just Leo and Lily kind of going down and doing mission work, but we were able to get, the whole group involved. And I think for other business owners, other leaders of organizations, the impact that a mission can have on your group and your organization is super vast. And I think if you as an organization want to do good. There's amazing organizations that do like that can bring stuff to you to do good. And I think that's what we want to do as 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶 too, is we have different projects that we can, have teed up for you guys or teed up for whoever, and you guys just say, hey, we're going to partner with 𝗨𝗶𝗶 and do this. It's not about credit. It's not about who's doing it, but it's saying, we're going to be the ones that remove the obstacles, and you guys can just partner and do it. And we'll, we get the project going, get it to completion, set it up for you guys, and then even take you guys down and do the be in it, touch it, feel it, see it, and so that's kind of what our whole model is having projects. There's a million different projects that anyone could do. We just have a couple that are already ready to go, that we have the team in place to do it, and so we set them in front of different organizations, different business owners, different churches, and say, hey, you might not have somebody in your organization that can lead a mission trip, especially as a church. Some churches just don't have the person in their organization that can lead a mission trip, or even in a business aspect too. But we want to make it possible that you can. So not every organization has a Leo that was doing it before.
Yeah.
But what 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶 can do is set it up for you guys, be the hands and feet that are taking care of it on the front end, and invite you guys to be a part of it and take it over from there, and really get you and your organization involved. And I think that's how people can partner with us. Really, as far as monetary, we don't really need a whole lot of money. We kind of only do the projects that other organizations partner with us for. We don't do anything more or anything less. We do exactly what other organizations want to partner us to do. So we can handle as many projects or as few projects as we need to. But we try to do our best to always have a project available for anyone that wants to come along. And we pray over those projects. We pray for the communities that they will benefit. And we pray for whoever's going to partner with us in those. And so far, it's always been a perfect match. It's always a perfect match for the project. 𝗨𝗃 is going down with us to do a project in August, and we're taking a trip with Millan in July, and then another trip with the community with Millan Foundation in September. And we just have a lot of different groups that are partnering with us to do good. And I think that's if people want to get involved, they can visit our website and kind of see. We have under our projects tab, you can look at available projects, and there's several projects there right now that you can click on and see, hey, if I wanted to get involved, what would it cost me and my organization? And then they can obviously reach out to me, and we can figure out a way to make that happen.
What's that website?
It's 𝗨𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗶missions.org.
Okay. And can you spell that out for
𝗨𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶 is 𝗨𝗨𝗶𝗶 Missions, MISSIONS Missions.
I think you got it. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. And how can they get in contact with you? Is your email on that website?
Yeah, you can find my email and my phone number on the website, and it's all there.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's important to note it's a little different than some other organizations. You find a project, and then when you find that organization, they're funding that project. It's not going into some general fund or mixed up with other resources. And there's nothing wrong with some of those organizations who handle things that way, but you do direct impact with the funds that are provided. Pretty special. Yeah.
So whatever project we have, their funds come through us because we're the ones that help get it there.
Facilitate it. Yep.
But everything is directly to the project. There's nothing that goes to 𝗨𝗶𝗶𝗶 to run our, to pay for our overhead. We have no employees. We just do everything out of the grace of our heart, and we try to make it big of an impact with their dollar as we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing. Well, I think that's, we could probably talk for hours. Yeah. Honestly, I know you have 100 stories.
Yeah.
And I think maybe on episode 2, if they'll have us come back, we'll talk some more. Yeah. I want to hear some of the dangerous ones. I'm sure you got a few that were a little sketchy.
There's always a 𝗨𝗨𝗏 breaking his leg.
Yeah. Man, Will, you got shouted out. But man, I just want to thank you. I consider you a friend. I thank you for talking to us, but thank you for being a leader. Thank you for serving God and leading with your heart and really following not what you necessarily want to do. I know you enjoy this now, but you're following biblical principles and a biblically led mission and dream that I think's been laid out in front of you, and so we're truly proud of you. You're giving a lot of hope. You're restoring lives, and And I wish you everything, but, with that and all the success that like can come from just being who you are and living authentically. So thank you and thank Millan Enterprises and the Millan Foundation and the Millan family. So
this has been a great time. Yeah.
Yeah, and Pastor Benton, I think we got to thank him as well, right?
Yeah, he's the one that started this whole thing.
Yeah,
him and God.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all, and thanks for joining us today.
Visit our website to stay up to date with everything going on at MillanFamilyFoundation.org. Thank you for listening to Millan Foundation Conversations. And until next time, do the next kind thing.